I think it is a reckless experiment. We shouldn't go for military intervention now. They should look.
Manufacturing program is what we are requesting of the minister responsible for finance.
I haven't heard from Sami Okujeto, but let him know that
it's Friday, the holiday edition, Founders Day edition of Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversations. And so on a holiday like this, we'll go easy on you, provide just brief details as to exactly what's been happening. So up on the agenda, the conversation surrounding ECOWAS and threats to use force in Niger. On a day to remember our founders, it will be significant to know what is happening within the West African sub-region. On matters of the economy, because it continues to come up, labor groups have accepted the newly improvised offer by government for the domestic debt exchange program. We'll hear from TUC boss, Dr. Yaoba. This is Let's Talk Ghana. Stay with us. We're back shortly. Right, you're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana. I am Eric Mawena Egbeta. Like I always say, this is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversation. It airs every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on Studios 2 TV. Many thanks for always sticking with us. So today is Founders Day. It's a day set aside by this administration to remember all of our founding fathers, the individuals who worked tirelessly to ensure that the country gets independence. And so from all of us here at Studios 2 TV, we say a huge respect to you. Your memories will continue to live on, and we will continue to celebrate you as much as we can for giving us at least independence. The economic aspect, well, as has always been said, that aspect we need to work harder at. But while we celebrate our founders, it doesn't look good for us here in Ghana and the West African sub-region in all, because chiefs of defense staff of ECOWAS member states have been meeting in Abuja. You may have heard that there's been a coup in Niger, and Niger is a northern neighbor of Nigeria. That's why there's Niger, there's Nigeria. Sometimes it confuses a bit whether you say Nigerian or Nigerian, a lot of that confusion. But there's been a coup in Niger. A military have ousted Mohamed Bazoum as a country's president, and they've taken over. And ECOWAS, whose current chair is Nigeria's president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, says that, look, ECOWAS does not support coups. Because of what you've done, we've given you up to August 6th. Bring back the president, Mohamed Bazoum, or else, for the first time, ECOWAS is threatening military action. They will take soldiers to Niger and fight to restore Mohamed Bazoum as the president of Niger. It has dangerous consequences for the sub-region with rippling effects. There's been a lot of opinion polls and theories in relation to it. We'll hear from some of them, but like I was telling you, chiefs of defense staff from ECOWAS member states have been meeting over that strategy. Mind you, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and the likes who currently have military rulers say, ECOWAS, don't try. If you enter Niger, we will join forces with Niger and fight you. It's a complicated conversation because it has to do with France. France continues to control quite a large stake in terms of Francophone West Africa. They enjoy a lot of benefits. That's why their currency even is CFA francs. You understand? And so France continues to wield some level of influence, and this is what is seen largely as a fight back by the citizenry. Of course, on the political and geopolitical space, there are a lot of explanations, but not to bore you. President Akufo-Addo yesterday was at an event by the Foreign Affairs Ministry to outdoor a new infrastructure, a new building, and he spoke. He says that Ghana will support its diplomatic neighbors to restore democracy in the sub-region, sadly endorsing ECOWAS's position. Let's take a listen to the president and exactly what he's been saying.
I'm delighted that the day has finally come for the commissioning of this all-important building, the Foreign Service Institute. It is a historic occasion, especially for me, for as many of you are aware, the establishment of our nation's own training institute for Ghanaian diplomats was a fundamental feature of my tenure as Minister for Foreign Affairs between 2003 and 2007, and has been so subsequently since my assumption of office as the President of the Republic in 2017. You may recall that following a rationalization exercise by the government of the second President of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency President John Agyekum Kufuor, the first MPP President, in 2006, the Ministry of Regional Cooperation and New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, was merged with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, resulting in the creation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, thus widening the scope of the ministry's mandate to encompass and signal Ghana's commitment to regional and continental integration. Properties inherited by the new Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration from the defunct Ministry of Regional Cooperation and NEPAD, including an uncompleted office building located on this very site. The Ministry of Diplomatic staff at the time traveled abroad for professional diplomatic training. Aside the academic training provided by the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, LESIA, and lately, other institutions. Such training programs are more of practical and skills development, with students from various countries sharing their unique experiences and worldviews. Ghana needed also to position herself to provide similar training facilities at home to receive diplomats from other countries, as they have been doing to the benefit of Ghanaians and other diplomats. Considering, therefore, that Ghana's diplomatic resource base needed drastic expansion as the country envisaged herself as the gateway to Africa, I had to take the necessary step to establish such an institute. The completion of the Foreign Service Institute thus marks an important milestone in Ghana's efforts to institutionalize a strong foundation for her diplomatic service. The Akufo-Addo's government's commitment to fostering diplomacy, cultivating international relations, and equipping our diplomats with the necessary skills to navigate the complexities of the ever-changing global landscape is to be enhanced as we commission this edifice today. Ghanaian diplomats will thus not only be exposed to ideas when they get the opportunity to travel abroad, but also benefit from this essential training at home, where former distinguished diplomats will have the right environment to share their knowledge and experience. Some former distinguished diplomats of Ghana, such as the late Ambassador James Agri Orleans, the late Ambassador Ramses Cleland Sr., and Ambassador E.M. Demra, who recently passed on, would have been at their best in transferring their considerable talents, experiences, and deep knowledge in diplomacy to the current generation of diplomats. I specifically mention these great men of memory to bring home their extraordinary contribution to the development of Ghana's diplomacy, since they devoted their time tirelessly, even in their very old age, to train and contribute their quota to the development of officers of the ministry. Hence, I can imagine how helpful this facility would have aided them in being at their best. Having said this, I must say that I'm not oblivious to the many great talents this country continues to be blessed with, who equally offer their best to the foreign ministry. To name but a few: Ambassador Victor Gbeho, Ambassador Anan Keto, Ambassador Agnes Agri-Orleans, and Ambassador D.K. Osa, and several others who are still with us, and who I expect will be invited to impart their rich experiences to our diplomats. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a firm believer in the transformation that this institute could initiate in our country. From providing our people with top quality training and development, to welcoming international students and scholars from other parts of the world to Ghana through this institute, our aim would be to foster mutual understanding and promote global cooperation. The institutes will prioritize actively and support initiatives that promote cultural exchanges, such as hosting international festivals and exhibitions, so as to help showcase Ghana's rich heritage and strengthen cultural ties with other nations. By nurturing a culture of continuous learning and adaptation within the Foreign Service Institute, we can cultivate diplomats who are not only skilled negotiators, but also empathetic listeners, creative problem solvers, and ambassadors of our nation's values. This holistic approach to diplomacy will enable diplomats to navigate complex international relationships with grace and effectiveness, promoting peace and understanding on a global scale. By investing in the development of these well-rounded diplomats, we can ensure that our nation's interests are advanced through respectful dialogue and collaboration. At this point, it is important to highlight our country's foreign policy goals of strengthening Ghana's position in international affairs. Among the policy objectives being pursued are promoting a globally competitive foreign service, enhancing Ghana's international image and influence in international organizations, leveraging Ghana's governance and security credentials to promote the country's political and economic interests abroad, and integrating the Ghanaian and African diaspora in national development. Our foreign policy is an extension of our aims, achieved through the vehicle of good neighborliness, which seeks friendship with all nations who seek our friendship and partnership with Ghana in furtherance of these aims. These policy objectives aim at positioning Ghana as a key player in global diplomacy and fostering mutually beneficial relations with other nations. By promoting a globally competitive foreign service, Ghana can represent effectively her interests and engage in fruitful diplomatic negotiations. Additionally, leveraging Ghana's governance and security credentials enhances the country's reputation as a stable and reliable partner committed to democratic values and attracting foreign investments and fostering economic growth. Finally, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the establishment of the Foreign Service Institute reflects our recognition of the crucial role diplomacy plays in maintaining regional, continental, and global stability, and in promoting peaceful resolutions to conflicts. Our world today is at the brink of a new global order, which hopefully is being shaped by a democratic and cooperative culture, underlined by friendly partnership with the potential to contribute to human development. There are, unfortunately, emerging trends of some military takeovers in the West African region, which are, however, not seen or accepted by the international community as the norm.
That's the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Well, the chair of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, he's been reacting as well to everything that's been happening and says that, look, a military intervention in Niger will be wrong. I spoke to him in my other heart that I wear. Here's exactly what he told us.
I think it is a reckless experiment. We shouldn't go for military intervention now. They should look at the military interventions all over the world and tell me the end state. So I don't think that we should rush into any military intervention. We should be looking for the causes of these military interventions and address them. What is happening across the Sahel is bigger than just a small military intervention. Any military intervention will be aimed at dealing with the symptoms rather than the causes of the disease itself. I believe that it has a lot to do with France's neo-colonial policy, and that is why in all the 506 cases, it is about French-speaking colonies. So we should look at it again.
Johnson Asiedu Nketia there is the chair of the NDC, and let's just close the chapter on the ECOWAS subject matter because we hear from him again in relation to the Council of State and then whether or not the NDC have returned to park. But on the ECOWAS situation, the timelines continue to remain. We'll keep our eyes open as to exactly what it is that happens there, and hopefully some resolution can come to the conversation which will not be military intervention. But let's return to Johnson Asiedu Nketia because he had some words in relation to the position of Samuel Okudzeto and the Council of State and their functions. He says that they have exceeded or they are currently deviating from the mandate given to them during the 1992 Constitution. It has to do with the controversial appointments made to the EC, Dr. Peter Appiagyei, who is a staunch member of the NPP, a card-bearing member at that fact, which has been established widely, has not been denied by the ruling NPP, and another member of the EC as well, whose families are strong NPP members. The NDC says they wrote to the Council of State asking explanations as to why those people were approved, and according to them, the Council of State's response was disappointed. Yes, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, speak to that and whether or not the NDC has returned to IPAC.
I haven't heard from Samuel Okudzeto, but let him know that those of us who created the Council of State, we understand its functions better than those who inherited it. We created the Constitution and we knew why we put the Council of State there. It has departed from its original mandate. And the whip that broke the camel's back, honestly, was a letter written in response of the National Democratic Congress's query to the council as to whether they did any background checks before advising the president to appoint the last batch of electoral commissioners. And their response was quite shocking, that as for them as a council, all they do when appointment is proposed to them is that they take the CV of that person and compare it with the requirements of the job. And if it meets the requirements, they recommend its approval. It tells you that they are not interested in any background checks. Background checking and the other considerations about character and other things, they are the reasons why the framers of the Constitution recommended that before the president undertakes such appointments, they must refer it to the Council of State for sober judgment in an environment of non-partisanship. That is why we crafted the Council of State to operate as a non-partisan advisor to the president, and you populate the council with experienced people who have distinguished themselves in the service of this nation. They are at the advanced age where they are not interested in, money laundering, money, property, and other things. They will be focused on the future well-being of Ghana. And so for such a council to come out to tell me that in case of their recommendation for appointment for or EC officials, or for that matter, any other appointment that is referred to them, Chief Justice, Supreme Court judges, and so on, their only consideration is just to look at your CV. It is quite shocking. And I would, if that is the way they are to operate, I don't believe that that is the way they operate, because the council establishes its own rules. So if you go and if a certain council at a certain point in time decides that we are going to be oblivious about background checks when recommending appointments, it is that particular council and not the institution of Council of State. So if we take it that this is coming from this particular council, then of course we can maintain the council, even if we have to tweak the rules to establish how they should undertake their work. We can still maintain it. But if it is accepted that all the council will be doing is to compare CVs and so on, then one computer can do all the work. We don't need to spend that amount of money maintaining a huge council, buying cars for them and doing everything for them. Then I will support the youth who are saying that the institution must be scrapped.
Right. Just last on IPAC, have you made the U-turn? I met Peter McBain, who says that you have returned to IPAC and now you're contributing to deliberations there.
Well, I'm here to learn about that. I don't know which IPAC he's talking about. We haven't returned to IPAC. It remains the same, because we will not be engaged in any useless activity. IPAC was established for a purpose. Indeed, the way the Council of State has acted, if I were a member of the Council of State, I'll stop attending Council of State meetings. Because what are you going to do? Who cannot compare the presidency? Don't they have the capacity to compare CVs with requirements of a job? Why should it take a council to go and sit there? If I were a member, I would stop attending meetings. Much the same way, the Electoral Commission. We established IPAC for a purpose, to generate consensus over certain electoral rules in this country. If that institution has departed from consensus building into something else, anybody who goes there will be wasting his or her time. Thank you very much.
So that's Johnson Asiedun Ketia, the chair of the NDC. We're going on a break. When we return, we talk about Labour and the new offer given to them by government. Stay with us. You're welcome back to Let's Talk Ghana. This is the show where we put Ghana first in all of our conversations. So before we went on that break, I was talking to you about Labour and a new offer to them by government. And so, not to bore you with the complexities and the new offers and all of that, let me just tell it to you as simply as a story. So we know that the economy is in tatters. We've gone to the IMF. One of the things which was critical for the IMF to say that, okay, Ghana, your situation is bad, I will give you $3 billion, but I won't give you all. I'll be giving it to you in badges. Go and do something about your economy. If you do it well, come, I'll give you $600 million. If you do it well again, come, I'll give you 600. If you do it well again, another 600. Then I'll reduce the amount, $3 billion. So one of the things that we are supposed to do as a country was to reduce our debt, because our debt was unsustainable. The government of Ghana owed too much. You sometimes will hear 100% of GDP. What it simply meant was that when we, as a government, we take all our revenue. So for instance, let me just try and cite it like, let's take it like the government is a worker. A worker. You, like a worker like you at home. When you take your salary for the entire year, which could be around 60 billion cedis, the debts that you owe or the loans that you owe, which you are supposed to pay, it's more than the salary that you gain. So you have to do something about your debt situation before we can help you, because the loan, the money we are giving to you as IMF, it is not free money, it is a loan. You have to pay us back. So we cannot give you money when you cannot pay us back, because the ones you owe already, your salary that you take at the end of the year cannot cater for it. So go and do something about your loan. That's what government came to do by restructuring the loan. So telling the people that, look, I know the loan is this amount. For instance, from a bank, this is the interest, that. I can't pay you because I'm broke. And there is absolutely nothing you can do about it because I'm the government of Ghana. Well, they are external creditors, and we've been seeking to pander to them and have them come on the table. But if we are broke, we are broke. There's nothing anybody can do about it in terms of us servicing these debts. So let us sit, let's negotiate so that I can restructure it in such a way that my 60 billion that I get every year, I can get some to spend on myself and do other things, so that we will stretch the amount that I owe you, so that I can be paying small whilst I get some of my own salary to be doing my things. Yes. In that negotiation, a part of it has to do with pension funds, the pension contributions of all labor groups. They also are a part of the debts that government has to restructure. And when government attempted to do it the first time, they said, honey, it won't happen. If you touch our monies, we're going on strike. We'll shut down the economy. So government had to do with the others and then find a way to come back to deal with the pension funds. Well, they've offered new terms, one that makes a bit more sense, because in sitting with the all other groupings, all of them suffered losses. So for instance, the Bank of Ghana, we talked about the 60 billion cedis debt, 5 billion US dollars over. The Bank of Ghana suffered same. And so they suffered haircuts. That's how come they've made such significant losses. So the pensioners or the labor groups say, no, we cannot suffer cuts when we are investing to get returns for our pensions. The pensions cry, how much is it? So bring us something that makes sense, something that will still see us make profit, even as you restructure the loan. And that is what government has offered to them. And so yesterday they met, the labor groups, to consider the new offer by government. And the consensus really, the statement will come up on your screen by and large. We're not going to go through it, but just as a confirmation for you, that statement from organized labor, that they've seen the latest proposal, they like it, but individual labor groups must go and have discussions with their members as to whether or not they like it. And so that's the position. Dr. Yaoban is the General Secretary of the Trades Union Congress. He speaks for organized labor as well. He spoke to journalists after their meeting yesterday. Let's just take a brief listen to him as to exactly what he said.
Organized labor position on the alternative offer for pension funds exchange. At organized labor leadership meeting held today, Thursday, 3rd August 2023, at the Hall of Trade Unions in Accra, the alternative offer for pension funds exchange was discussed. After an extensive deliberation of the offer, as stated in the exchange memorandum, which was issued by the Ministry of Finance on the 31st of July 2023, the meeting concluded that the terms stated in the alternative offer is better than the initial offer organized labor rejected in December 2023.
December 2022.
Let me take this again. After an extensive deliberation of the offer, as stated in the exchange memorandum, which was issued by the Ministry of Finance on 31st July 2023, the meeting concluded that the terms stated in the alternative offer are better than the initial offer organized labor rejected in December 2022. In particular, the alternative offer guarantees the following. 1. There is no loss in patrimonial value of the bonds. This means bonds held by pension schemes will not incur any losses on their patrimonial value. 2. The new bonds are tradable. What it means is that the bonds can be actively traded on the secondary bond market in Ghana. 3. Liquidity. There is assurance that coupons and maturities will be paid on time. The leadership of organized labor therefore decided that since the alternative offer is voluntary, the various boards of trustees of pension funds should independently assess the alternative offer and participate in the exchange based on their assessment and in the best interest of their members. The meeting resolved that organized labor will closely monitor the implementation of the provisions in the exchange memorandum to ensure that government does not default in the payment of interest and principal when they fall due. In other words, organized labor will not tolerate default. In the event that government fails to implement the provisions as stated in the exchange memorandum, organized labor will advise itself. Thank you.
Doc, does it mean that organized labor has accepted this new deal?
It is not organized labor to accept a new deal. I have stated in the statement, we assessed this new offer based on what is in the exchange memorandum. Now, after all that, we now think that it is time for us to allow the pension funds or the schemes to now engage the government on this. But they are the experts in the industry, so they have to do proper assessment of the offer, and then on the basis of that, they can go ahead and then participate in the new bond market, especially so when the old bonds now have lost their value in terms of the principles that were established: tradability, the liquidity, and also the liquidity, tradability, liquidity, and then in particular the fact that the new bonds ensure that there's no loss in patrimonial value. That was our number one concern, and in fact we rejected the first offer in 2022 because in our own estimation 2023 government was going to pay zero.
Yes.
And we thought this was wrong, and in any case government did not even consult anybody on that. So it was like take it or leave it, and we hated those things, and that those factors provided the basis for us to reject, especially so when the value was affected. So when we agreed to consult and engage government on this whole exchange, our number one concern was the value. And so if you study the exchange memorandum very well, government tried, whatever they could to ensure that the patrimonial value of pension funds remain unchanged. And that is what they call the net present value is neutral. Therefore, in terms of value, pension funds are not losing anything. But that is subject to condition that, for example, the economy will be stable, inflation will be stable, and the rest of it. But that one, if inflation is still high, it affects everybody. And therefore, we also discussed and resolved to engage government to ensure that the economy is stable, so that the value that we have gotten for our pension funds will not diminish as a result of.
My understanding is that organized labor has asked individual unions to engage.
No, individual pension fund.
That's Dr. Yauba, the General Secretary of the Trades Union Congress and spokesperson of organized labor. We're going for an unusual break, but when we return, the Speaker of Parliament has been making some orders. The Finance Minister must come and brief the House on the domestic debt exchange program. So let's just go on that break, come and pick details, and then we wrap up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's talk Ghana. Let's end with the Speaker of Parliament because he's directed that the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta appears before Parliament to brief the House on the domestic debt exchange program. It follows a motion which was filed by the Minority Leader Dr. Kese Latoforsen because he says that there's been strong resistance to that. Here is the Minority Leader Dr. Kese Latoforsen and then the Speaker subsequently making that order or giving that order.
Debt sustainability, you will need to go through debt restructuring. The contours, the details of the debt restructuring program is what we are requesting of the minister responsible for finance to actually present to us and not just an update. An update may be that he has successfully restructured A, B, or C, but that is not what we are looking for. We want him to give us a brief. It's because we only have to read in some of the IMF debt sustainability documents for us to understand that we are going to achieve debt sustainability in the year 2028. It's because some of us here are not aware of that information. So when we are debating on those issues, they are handicapped. It is only right that this House get to understand that our debt as we speak is unsustainable and we are taking step A, B, C, and D to achieve sustainability. And in the period, you have to do A, B, C, and D along the way. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, it is not about update, but he has to present the program, the policy of debt restructuring to us for consideration. Mr. Speaker, that is all what I'm asking for.
The government debt restructuring program for consideration by the House. I will proceed to direct that this presentation be made by the minister before the Committee on Finance. And then the Committee on Finance will then report the comprehensive recommendation to the House for consideration. Chairman, ranking member of the Committee for Finance should take up this matter, get the minister to appear before the committee to present the government's debt restructuring program. The committee, together with the ministry, will deliberate over it, and then the committee will now submit what they have in the form of a report to the House for consideration and other adoption or rejection by the House. I so direct.
So proceedings from Parliament, that's how we end today's edition, the Founders Day edition of Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. We're back on your screens, your mobile phones, your devices on Monday again with another exciting edition. Many thanks for watching. I am Eric Mawina-Egbeta. Enjoy the long weekend.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.